So let's get into what sleep actually is. So by definition, sleep is this normal state of consciousness characterized by reduced awareness of external stimuli. You start to not focus on other things around you and you're more internally focused. Your alertness and whatnot kind of goes down. And as you can notice from this little pie graph on the right-hand side, how we spend our entire lifetime, we spend a third of our life here in purple asleep. So let's talk about this. It's a pretty important activity, all things considered. Sleep is divided into two different types, and you can see them color-coded here in light blue and dark blue. The first is what this dark blue is, what we call rapid eye movement or REM sleep. The other is non-REM sleep, creative naming. So some different things about REM sleep. It resembles wakefulness. So even though you are asleep, your brain is very similar to if you are awake. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second. But it's during this stage that you tend to dream the most. And we tend to be, our body is paralyzed during this stage, which is good because otherwise you might start acting out your dreams, which would be bad. So because your body's typically paralyzed, you don't typically sleepwalk in this stage either. However, you might sleep talk and whatnot still. But it's kind of the most prominent stage of sleep when you think about, when you like think about what sleep is, you think about the state where you're dreaming and whatnot, and that's REM. Conversely, non-REM is more of a deep physical relaxation. Non-REM has 4 different phases that we're going to talk about. So this kind of takes you through different depths, that's the better word, of non-REM sleep. So stage 1 here, and you can kind of see them wrapping around in this pie chart on the left. Stage 1 of non-REM sleep is kind of that very light, first falling asleep stage where like if you've ever like come home after a really long day and you like sit down in the super comfy chair and you're like just like tingling, you're kind of like starting to drift off a little bit. You're not aware you're sleeping, but like you're just comfy, you're cozy, you're starting to first fall asleep. That's stage 1. Stage 2, your brain is further starting to slow down those waves. You're definitely asleep by this stage, but you'll still respond to external loud stimuli if they're unexpected, if the door opens or something. But you're starting to now transition into actual sleep. By stage 3 and 4, these are really deep stages of sleep. So you're definitely unresponsive to external stimuli once you hit stage 3, and it's very difficult to awaken someone who is in these last 2 stages. You do have sleepwalking possible in these 2 stages, but your sleep talking is most common in the first couple, before your brain is fully kind of shut off. Shut off is not the right term to use, but slowing down at least. So we tend to cycle through these stages throughout the night. So we enter each of these stages multiple times. So what this graph is showing you, the same color coding. On the y-axis here is the different stages we've just talked about, from being fully awake. This is REM. So yes, REM sleep is the most similar to awake. That's why it's higher on this axis. And then the 4 stages, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're basically going from deepest sleep down below to fully awake up top. And this is how many hours you've been asleep. So things I want you to notice here is that when you first fall asleep, you kind of go immediately into 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're staying in 4 for a little bit. It's only after you go through these stages that you advance up and finally get to REM sleep. So you start with a little REM sleep, and you'll notice kind of as the night progresses, REM sleep starts to increase. You start to get more of it, right? And the deep sleep starts to kind of decrease. You don't enter 3 or 4 as often. So one of the kind of reasons that you've ever taken like, power naps, I don't know how long you guys nap for, but I'm out for a while. They might help you in giving you some deep sleep pretty quickly, but you'll need a full night's rest. You'll need past an hour or so to start to actually feel those, benefits and whatnot of REM sleep. So this is why, waking yourself up in different stages of your sleep might lead to different feelings of drowsiness or different feelings of alertness. Okay, so before we get into more details about the actual brain regions involved here, let's talk about why we do this. Like, have you ever wondered, like, do you ever wish you could just be awake to do all the things at all the times? Like, sometimes if you feel like you have too much to do in each day, you're just like, why do I need to sleep? Like, why can't I just keep going? Maybe you feel that if you've ever been on vacation or whatnot. I don't know, you do you. There are some benefits. So here's why we sleep. REM tends to benefit your mind. So this does things like stabilize your memories, it stabilizes your mood, and more importantly, if you don't get into these REM stages very often, it leads you to irritability and difficulty concentrating when you're focusing on things. This is why if you only get a few hours of sleep every night and you don't really get to those major REM stages, you might be it'd be hard to focus the next day, right? If you've ever survived off a couple hours of sleep. Some benefits of REM sleep benefit your body instead of your mind. So these deep sleep stages are the stages where your body starts to heal itself. If you've ever had like a cut or an injury, your body is doing all the healing during these stages 3 and 4. So because you've kind of shut down and you don't need to spend as much cognitive resources and things on, figuring out what's in the world, your body can then put those resources to fixing up and doing some of that leftover stuff. So it leads to repairing your body, it leads to growth, and it leads to overall kind of immune system and health. So that's why, like, when you're sick often too, they say to get plenty of rest, because that's when your immune system can do its best. It also interacts with transforming memories as well into versions that can be stored later by REM sleep. And if you're deprived of non-REM sleep, that leads to an inability to repair these kind of, scratches or cuts on yourself. It's an inability to fight off infection, and it leads to poor memory in this case. So definitely some deficits of not getting these appropriate sleep amounts. So let's go into a little bit more on these sleep stages. I'm going to show you another video from Crash Course introducing it, and then we'll talk about it more in depth.